Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Replimat. Hello, Tim. um, hi. Uh, what I call a chatcast, because it's a sort of a mix between a webcast and a chat. So it's a chatcast. A semi-regular, sometimes regular, sometimes less so. Depends on if we've been eating enough greens, I guess. Of two nerds wandering through Deep Space Nine in order. Today we are going to be talking about shortly episode 2 of season 2 of Deep Space Nine, The Circle, which was first aired on the 3rd of October 1993, nearly 30 years ago, written by Peter Allen Fields, directed by Corey Allen. Still, okay, Tim. Be first up. Go on.
Is it because it said to be continued at the end, didn't it? Not
Yes.
to be concluded. So I still don't know if next week is the final part or what. But it's this. It was a really good, enjoyable episode. I liked it a lot, and I was personally very pleased that my mistrust of the
Oh yes,
of the
yes.
guy proved to be true.
Blank Geller's character, I forget his name, but yeah.
Jaro?
Minister Jaro.
Minister Jaro.
Yes.
Yeah. I suppose it kind of it kind of suffers a little bit from sort of middle part syndrome. In as much as if we hadn't watched the first part like last week, or it had been longer ago, I think. Uh, Even though you got that last time on Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
No. Just last
I
time
think I
on Deep
wouldn't have
Space
enjoyed it as
Nine.
much. Yeah,
They don't even say Star Trek.
but
It's just Deep
Star
Space
Trek,
Nine.
Deep Space Nine. Yeah,
But I mean, I completely get what you're saying. But I suppose I suppose back in '93, obviously it wasn't repeated the way you can now just watch on streaming. And you're not necessarily, if you'd missed the opening episode of the season, which you may have been working or some such, and you're like, oh, I must make sure I watch it this week. If you'd looked up in the listings or something, it would just have said The Circle, so you wouldn't even have known it was a second part of a story until the previously on bit. But yeah, there's enough, I think, in the episode that refers back to the previous one that I think you can get it.
yes. So I didn't mean that to be unnecessarily negative, because I don't think it is. I get that ordinarily, I think when you're watching these, you would, if you sat down to watch beginning of season 2, you would probably end up like you said you normally do. You end up watching the first few episodes back to back, because it kind of automatically lends itself. It lends itself to that. So no, that was I did. I realised after I said it that sounded like a criticism. I don't think it necessarily is. I just think that taking the episode in isolation,
Yeah.
you don't have it. I suppose it's like watching a multi-part Doctor Who story and just watching one episode at a time.
Why would you, right?
You've got you've got to remember where the characters have come from, and you don't know yet where they're going. So it's kind of like when you get to the end of it, you kind of got a better appreciation, and maybe the desire to go back and rewatch it all again, thinking, oh, I know now. You know where it all ends up. Watching where some of the pieces slot in, maybe that you don't appreciate first time round, as it were.
I get that, but I would also counter that with, if you're dumb enough to just jump into the middle of a arc, then But then them not actually saying part 1, part 2, part 3, you could easily not know, I suppose, potentially. Yeah. But then again, back in the day, I could get it. This day, because it's all streaming, if it's the first time anyway, why would you just watch a random episode?
And presumably, when these were released on VHS, would they have been released? How many episodes would they show on the tape? 2?
2, so it would have been part 1 and part 2 together anyway,
Yeah.
regardless. And you'd have to be an idiot to buy a VHS and then watch the second episode, not the first.
Oh well, yeah.
Plus, you'd have to go forward. You'd have to literally fast forward to get to it anyway,
Yes.
because it's not like DVDs or Blu-rays where you had a menu screen.
You
You
can
literally
select
just
the
press
episode.
play, and you had to watch the whole thing. You didn't get the option of, oh, I'll watch episode 2 today, unless you stopped it
Yeah.
after episode 1. Because those are different days, man.
We'll be told someone
Very
else would
different.
rewound the tape.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I
Yeah.
do like about this episode, it's what I like. Well, the first episode, although it's still part of the story about the circle, and obviously this, what is, as it turns out, something of a coup going on, and
Yeah.
as we learned in this episode, I like that this episode primarily focused on Kira. Not
Yeah.
entirely, because obviously everybody had a good part to play this episode. Everybody, including the supporting cast. But I like that is Kira's story this time. Whereas
Yeah.
last week was very much a setting up, everything going on. I mean, I suppose a little bit Kira's last week, but not as much, because it's more about Leonalis last week, I suppose. But this was definitely oh man, and Nana was superb. I mean,
Yes. Yes, she
such. I
was.
mean, I have to go straight in on the first, not the opening scene, but certainly one of the opening scenes. I think it was the first scene after the titles.
What in her
Yeah,
in her cabin?
the whole bit where everybody's coming to say goodbye.
I
It's
know
just
it's
so well filmed, so
it's very
well written, so well. I remember reading about it, and they obviously rehearsed it so much to get all the everyone steps in right, and the conversations are overlaid, because obviously you've got the bit where even when Odo and Kira first, and then Dax comes in, but Odo's still trying to have his conversation with Kira while Dax is having a very chill conversation. Then
yeah.
Bashir comes in to have his conversation while Dax and Odo are still trying to have their conversation, and it just keeps building to the point where Kira's like, "Yes, no, you, yeah," and and brilliantly done.
It is. And
Very funny too.
it's quite a sort of standard like kind of comedy
Mm,
routine setup. Uh,
yeah,
like ordinarily, if you walked into that situation and other people were obviously having a conversation, you wouldn't automatically start
no, you'd be
yours.
like,
You'd wait until
"What do you
they'd
say?
finished
Excuse me."
theirs. Yeah, exactly. So, but again, yes, I thought it was very well done. It was very well performed. The timing was
Mm,
spot on, because it has to be bam, 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 bam.
absolutely, yeah.
And so the audience are getting that she's potentially giving the wrong answer
Mm,
to the right. She's actually answering the question correctly,
to the
but
right
it sounds
person,
to the
yeah.
character that she's answering it.
And that's another thing I liked about that particular scene, is that as each person come in, their response to her leaving and what they wanted to talk to her about was so fitting with their character and their own relationship with Kira, and you get to see in this nice microcosm here
Mm.
the different relationships she has with each of them. Even though I don't know if we necessarily saw, for instance, the relationships between her and all of them throughout the last season. Really, Odo definitely. Dax, you saw some of it.
Yeah.
Bashir, you didn't really see much of it, really, because you didn't see much of Bashir and Kira, really.
No, or O'Brien.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. I liked about with the O'Brien. It was a very professional goodbye. There was no personal. Oh, you let me this, like with Dax, so I thought I'd bring it back to you. Where of course Bashir's very like, oh no, it's a new woman to look at. She's gone, sort of. He was just typical Bashir. And I like
No.
Odo. I like that he's just so frustrated that she's going. you know, and he's so gruff and annoyed that the only way he can show how much he cares is by having a go at her for just going. You know.
Can I just ask quickly? Someone's drilling outside. Can you
Yeah, I was
hear
going
them?
to say, I wonder what that was. I did
Okay,
wonder. I did wonder. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's
we
fine.
are.
I can do a remove background noise, but that so I might be able to get it. And it's not. It's not that loud. I just thought it was some like cats or something. I know they were my cats because
Well,
they're all sleeping around the house somewhere. But
if it is, then someone's torturing them.
go
Torturing them.
on.
But it
Oh,
just yeah,
won't
someone
have that.
somewhere
Not having that. No, 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 no.
drilling or
But yes,
wood.
so that scene, superb. But what I like, it's only towards the end that it's only a click to me, so I made a note of this, that it was probably the only real part of humor we had in that episode. Really, we had a little
Yeah.
touches of it throughout, like the initial Baral and Kira scene when she's on about how really awful she is as a gardener. But that was the comedy piece for the episode because
Yeah, the
the
rest
rest of
of
it's going to be
it's
quite heavy in places.
it is, and it trundles along at quite a pace
Yeah.
as well. And yeah, you know, you're right. That was they the rest of the episode. There wasn't the usual kind of sort of spattering
Mm.
of humour mixed in, just because it was
Wasn't no forced humor. There was
no,
all, like the Kira and Baral thing was, it seemed natural. What I
yes,
also liked about that particular scene, that initial scene with her, anyway, when she's dead, because it's been a few days clearly, because Neil Larris has had a chance to settle into his role a bit as well. He's still
yeah,
at odds, but he's settled a bit. Um, is that the humor between those two? It just feels real and honest. And just seeing Kira in that civilian setting, to me, seemed a very natural, and excuse the pun, progression of what we saw of her in Progress.
yeah,
The episode with I forget the old man's name, but when she got to go to the moon of Bayshore one, and there was
yeah,
enough because in that episode she tells a bit about her own life, and you can see that this is sort of life she kind of wants, and you see her getting it kind of in this one, and she's not finding it hard to adapt. She's just trying to find what works for her. But seeing her in that environment, I think it's nice. It was nice to see Kira out of uniform in civilian clothes with her hair
I
flat.
was going to say they changed her hair as well,
Yeah,
just to add that extra bit
I don't have to do the
bit to it.
discipline now. I can just be more chill.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very good, very good.
yes, yeah. No, I did like that, and I the other thing that I the other aspect of the episode that I liked a lot is it didn't go where I was expecting it to. When
Mm.
they had there was like a shortcut where with Odo saying, "Oh, I've found where the headquarters of the circle."
Oh, yeah, because he has got contacts, and we saw
So
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there was a little bit of me there that thought that's
Mm.
a little convenient,
And I
and
suppose at that point for
we
you,
didn't go with him on that journey.
yeah,
He just came in and offered the
and
information.
for you at that point in your head, you're presumably thinking, well, this is obviously they got to wrap this two-parter up
Exactly.
quickly, so I can
Yes.
see why they shortcut. But
Yeah.
they shortcut because obviously they got more important stuff to tell. Yeah,
That's so. In retrospect, I can see that obviously that wasn't key enough to the overall
no,
narrative
the important thing
to
was
need to
get
go
them
into.
there so we can see
And at the
Kira.
time, it felt not clunky, but it just felt like it was they were
But I
rushing
think
things forward.
sometimes you need to do that. It's like when I was editing recently. I'm not going to specifically say what because obviously it won't be in the book, but hopefully there was just a couple of scenes that when I read, I'm like, I don't think we need them because this particular character is so well defined anyway. I'm not saying he could be a recurring, he could be a new character, because that way you can't tell what I cut. But I think as a reader, or in this case as a viewer, you know this character well enough to infer what went down. You didn't need to see it because sometimes Star Trek's not so much guilty of this, but it can be where you go into the minutia of the process too much of how they went from here to here to here to here. When
Yeah,
sometimes inference is enough that each viewer or each reader, whatever, can say, "Oh no, I understand this character enough that I can see the various ways he could have got this information, and that's fine." You
yeah,
don't necessarily need to see it all the time because
no,
sometimes you've got to move the story forward.
and a
You've
lot of
had,
what
and also it also underscores a dramatic beat that doesn't need to be, that get to it next. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, you pick up the pace, and a lot of what Quark does is unpleasant and underhand anyway. So why linger on it?
yeah,
Um, but it contributed to the fact that the episode really didn't end where I was or end up where I was expecting it to. Whoa, bloody drilling! Um, yeah, it didn't end up where I was expecting it to.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So you know, and obviously because it's a multi-part story, so it's going to continue into next week. But yeah, that was and that was really good as well, because I
It's
like
like you're accompanied by weird music.
it's the music by Tristan Carey this week. Yeah, it's just
Sorry, yes, continue.
so yeah, just that was good because it wrong foots the viewer slightly. So
Yeah.
your automatic assumptions and things kind of kick in, and then it's good to have those. It's good to have those sort of brushed aside, and for the narrative to go, aha, no,
Mhm.
it's not what you thought. We're not just going to wrap this up in 5 minutes.
No,
We're not going to transport in and shoot everyone and then rescue someone and then
and
come out
reveal
and
the
then everything will be
Kardashians and day's
revealed
over.
and
Yeah.
suddenly it's all right. So
Well, it's nice. I like that because it's the middle part of the story, presumably a middle part of the story.
the middle part.
One of the middle parts. At least it's the next part of the story that they're able to breathe a bit.
Hmm.
Because at the very least, even if it's only two parts, that's still an hour and a half. So that's a nice, good old film runtime. But if it's
Yeah.
at least 3 episodes, that's almost a modern film running time. So they've got loads of time to breathe and let the story develop more naturally without rushing it. You can just unpeel the pieces bit by bit, which are doing this where we learn gradually that first of all, it's a circle behind this thing that's going on. Turns out that there's actually some coup going on. They're not just anti-Bajoran. There were actually some big coups being planned, and then you find out that Jaro's behind it, um, and then you find out that unsurprisingly, Vedic Win is a part of it, and then you find out the Kardashians are actually supplying them, and they obviously don't know, or at least we assume they don't know.
Yeah, we've not been told that. Yeah,
No, we've not
all
been
we've been
told for
told is that
sure.
they don't know.
Yeah,
But
we just
yeah,
assume they don't know. And the only good Bajoran that we met today, this week at least, is that Major or General, whatever his name was. I forget what his name was.
well, the guy that Cisco chatted with.
Yeah, he's the only one who seems decent. I like the
Yeah,
whole that Cisco gave him the information, then asked for the favor, and I like the guy. He's like, it's interesting that you did that. You could have bartered, and he's like, oh no, I wouldn't do that. And he's like, I should remember that
I
about you.
remember about you. Yeah,
So I like. It's like that's quite nice. It's a nice build. It's again, it's they're unveiling, and it's quite complex actually, because there's so many layers to what is going on. And it's nice. It's nice that DS9, I think, is the right Star Trek show to do this. I don't think it would have worked on TNG because obviously TNG's a next planet, whereas this
yeah.
you're able to actually develop this because it's stationary and they've built enough of this up over the last year that you can actually this feels natural. It doesn't feel like you force this story, you know.
Well, we, I mean, that's something I suppose we didn't pick up on it last week because it necessarily probably didn't seem relevant. But now we can see that this isn't well, we said during season one, would this have made a next generation episode,
Mm.
or could this have been done as another Star Trek show? I think we are very much in the territory of no, this could not have
Yeah,
been
I
done.
mean, of Star Trek of the time, obviously, because there's plenty of Star Trek at the moment this could work in. Because modern Trek is obviously very much about serialization because that's just modern TV. But certainly back 30 years ago, no, it definitely this is not a TNG thing. Because obviously at this point it's only TNG anyway, so this is not really a story you could tell on TNG. I mean, the core story, of course, you can definitely go onto the planet where all this shit's happening, but you couldn't tell it like this
Yeah,
because all this stuff's embedded, and you wouldn't have, for instance, at the end of the episode, everybody having to evacuate the Enterprise. You wouldn't have that.
no,
There's no reason. Oh, we're going to evacuate our own ship. Why? What? But in this, you absolutely can. It feels, yeah, I can see why this would happen because obviously this is something that's been simmering anyway, literally since the first episode already. For the last, what was it, 23 episodes or whatever. This has been simmering the fact that not all of Bajor want the Federation here. You know, it's not something we didn't know already, especially at the end of the last season. You know, that was very clear. Um,
Yeah.
I like also, going back to the character work here. I like that. I like the depth of the relationship between Kira and Cisco that we're now seeing. Again, I think we've seen it build,
Yeah.
but we're
It
actually
just
seeing it really, and I think Kira is realizing it for the first time. So
yeah,
that
very
bit
much so.
where,
Those little moments
yeah,
where
the bit
they
where
don't have
she,
to be played out in full. They
mm,
can be done with a look or a couple of words, and it just says so much
well,
more,
yeah,
just
that
so much
first
more
scene between them
powerfully.
where she goes to say goodbye, where she's basically like, I'm off now, and he's like, no, no, I will get you back. And the look on her face where you can just see it, and when I watch it, I'm blinking. You can just see that it's the first time
Yeah,
that Kira's like, she's really moved by it because she's like, oh, I didn't realize until now how important this entire thing is for me. Until it's been taken away. Kira never realized how much I think she settled into it, and it settled into these people. Like it's again going back to that first scene where Baral walks in and everybody's rah rah rah. They all stop, and she's like, "Oh, oh, these are my friends." And it's just that moment where she suddenly realizes, Jesus, they actually are. When did this happen?
yeah,
And
definitely.
it's just like yeah,
But,
finally.
but
I say
also,
finally, it's only season 2, but finally,
it's very much her as well that she's not gone straight to Cisco and said,
fuck this
um,
shit.
I want you. Yeah, you need to help me. You need to do
Mm.
something about this.
She just like fine, but then she
Yeah,
realizes, oh, not fine actually, because
yeah,
it was just a job, but actually it turns out it hasn't been just a job for me in so long. I just didn't realize until now.
and
And
it
yeah,
would
I
have,
love that.
and it would have disempowered her slightly and affected her stature if she'd gone to
Oh,
Cisco and said,
absolutely. Yeah.
You've got to help me." Whereas it, her stature is massively elevated by the
Mm.
fact that Cisco comes to her and says, "I'm going to get you back.
Yeah. And he does that
I
again
need
when he
you
comes
here
down
on
to
the
visit
station."
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some very very subtle and very well done character
Mm.
moments there with about the
Speaking of
relationship.
character,
Yes.
one thing, and this is something I've always felt about this particular character, not so much the character, it's more the performance. So probably the actor, because he's going to be around for a while, as you could probably guess already. Is that Vedit Baral? Because obviously this is his second episode now, so he's kind
Yeah.
of become he's become a recurring kind of like Winaz. It's hard to explain. It's not the writing because Nana and Kira make it work. I think I feel the relationship. It sells. It feels normal. It feels real. So it's not the writing because both Nana and indeed Kira, to me, it feels real. But I always, when I'm watching Burial, and again, I don't think it's the way it's written. I think it's the performance, the choices of the actor. I think his name's Philip Anglum or something like that. He always comes off to me as kind of creepy and a bit off. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can see that.
Yeah,
Like I
it's just
said,
like,
it's a very
unless he's,
affected
yeah, maybe
performance.
it's intentional. I assume intentional choice that he made, that he's trying to kind of convey that this is out of his wheelhouse and he's a bit awkward in it. Maybe I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting choice because I'm not saying I don't know. It's an odd one because they seem to have decent chemistry on screen. I think between both actor and characters, but it does occasionally feel when I'm watching it that the actor that's playing Baral is playing a slightly different scene to what Nana seems to think she's playing. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly. It's just,
No, no, no. I understand completely. So
mm,
I will often watch stuff, and I think the energy levels or the focus of a particular actor are very
mm,
different to everyone else. Probably a perfect example of this actually is is Paul Darrow in Blake Seven, for example, particularly in season 4.
Yes.
Darrow is acting in a completely different
Oh, he's
program.
proper camping it, arching
Um,
it up, isn't he?
exactly.
Yeah.
They're a completely different energy level to everyone else, and I think a lot of the time that's a lack of communication. I think between the director and the actor,
Hmm.
they don't share the same vision. Now, sometimes with a leading actor, it's because the actor is actually quite strong and powerful in
Hmm.
politically.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get those kind of uneven things.
Well, it's a
Um,
bit like Tom Baker, isn't it? Towards the latter end of
I
his
suppose,
run,
yeah.
where he basically held all the power because he was the star. He was the Doctor. Without him, there's no
So
show, and he's
yeah,
so big you can't get rid of him anymore.
yeah. So you lose some of
Pardon me.
the kind of the serious subtlety and
Hmm.
the quiet moments that you get with the earlier episodes. I think with this one with Fedek Bareil, I've noticed myself in his episodes that there's something about him that's different,
Hmm.
and I is the energy is lower, that's for sure, but I don't know whether it's at the moment. I don't know whether it's specific because of his religious
Hmm.
role.
Yeah.
Whether he thinks that's whether the director and the actor have decided together that that's the appropriate
Hmm.
behaviour for. It's not shared necessarily by Vedek Wynn.
Hmm.
She's a little
She's
more,
definitely in another. She's in
but
her own
then
league.
she's more arch and
Hmm.
uh,
She's very politic.
yeah, exactly.
She's
Whereas
condescending, false, and boy, she knows how to say the right things in a very passive aggressive way that you can't really argue with because you know she's not technically wrong,
yes, yeah,
but
no,
she knows she's not technically wrong.
yeah,
But that's not,
she's very good
yeah,
and
she's very much
clever.
the rule of law as opposed to the spirit of the law.
Mm.
It's more, but it's such a great performance though.
Yeah,
She's often regarded as the woman you love to hate or character.
cool.
She died actually not that long ago, sadly.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's a shame.
because
But yeah,
yeah,
Bareilles, he's I'm not quite sure yet with it. Where all I know is that there is a definite kind of energy drop,
hmm.
um, and
See, I wonder, and maybe this is my reading of it. It feels to me a little bit in his mannerisms, because again, it's got to be a choice as an actor, or because he can't be. Well, I know he's not a bad actor because in later episodes he plays a very different version of this character, um, which will become clear eventually. Some time off, yeah, I think at least possibly season 4. Either way, anyway. Um, so it can't be that it's just bad acting. I think it's a choice. And when I'm watching the scenes with him, same as last season when he turned up, I get a sense that Bareil, through the actor's choice, is on maybe the autistic scale in some sort of way. 'Cause he's got this bizarre social, physical awkwardness with people, and that may be why he became a monk. I don't know.
yeah, that's
I don't
interesting.
know.
I
I
like
don't
that.
know. It's
I do. I
yeah,
like
because
that a
he's
lot.
definitely maybe that's why partly he became a monk because he growing up was never comfortable with people and wasn't able to didn't quite know how to relate. So you become a monk. You're in seclusion all the time and you're meditating and you're just surrounded by your gardens and stuff, then you don't need to deal with people. But then he met Kira, who is unlike anybody he's ever met, almost certainly, and he's fascinated by her and clearly attracted to her, and she's clearly attracted to him. Um, and physically, he's not able to relax, I suppose. So
Yeah,
again, that's what I'm saying. The scripting of it works. You can see what the script's doing between them. So yeah, I don't know. It's just odd because Bareil to me has always been like whenever he turns, I'm like boring character time, But looking at it now, I don't know. Maybe it's more to it than that after all. See, rewatching can change your view. Especially when
This
you've
is
been
true.
watching it so many times, you suddenly think, hang on a minute, let's look at a different perspective, and maybe it makes a bit more sense now. So, yeah. I learned something. So yeah, let's wrap this up because we've been doing this unfortunately longer than we would normally
We haven't. Oh,
because
that noise is really
we've had that
annoying in the
drill
background.
and we've also Tim's lost his connection a few times unfortunately. So we've been doing this longer than what it will seem when you guys watch this back.
It's been on for
Because
weeks.
this,
Weeks, people.
I know. I mean, this beard, this side was a lot darker when we started. I wish. Well, a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, because I saw pictures of me not that long back, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's gone grey quite quickly recently. That's this side, isn't it? It's fun. This side's dark, as you can see.
Oh,
And
you
that
vain
side,
pussycat.
it's so annoying. Yeah, I saw this thing on it's advertised one on TV. Must be on YouTube.
Right.
This cream gel, what's it stuff? It's kind of shampoo type thing where you basically add it to your hair and it gradually gets rid of all the greys. It's basically some sort of new hair dye type thing, but instead of doing it like in one go, it gets rid of them gradually. So it's not so noticeable when you say go to work the next day and they're like, whoa, gradually. So people don't start realizing until it's done. And I'm like, yeah, that's quite a good idea, but meh. I quite like the grey to be fair. So anyway, yeah. So yeah. So what was this about ego? What?
Right. Go on then. Before. Oh, too late. Started again.
Let it grill. Okay, so yes, that was the circle.
The circle.
The circle. Um, that's because I got that weird jagged bit in the middle of it.
What have we got next
Um,
week?
Next week is episode 3 of this particular story, and indeed this season, which is called, and I'm pretty sure you can see why because you've watched the end of this one, The Siege. I
Yep.
think obvious reasons with the last episode, last scene with Cisco saying, "Well, I guess some of us ain't gonna be going then," so you can see what's gonna be coming down.
Happy
Um,
so.
a good episode, as I recall. It's a good wrap up. Not that I'm saying it's the end of the story necessarily.
Necessarily. I shall
Like with
find
Deep
out next
Space
week.
Nine, so not necessarily, definitely not necessarily. Cool. Okay, so you catch us again, hopefully next week, for the siege. You can find us as always on the social medias. The Replimat is still on Twitter. The links will all be below anyway. Tim is still on Twitter. Wonder for how
I am
long.
indeed. Yep.
I am
With my
not. I'm
underscore.
on Threads. Yeah, Mr. Underscore. And we are obviously on Instagram, both personally and as the Replimat. Links will be below. But in the meantime, like, subscribe, and share, and please let people know because it's good for us, good for you because, as somebody said last week, apparently we're quite interesting.
Ooh, oh, that's nice.
Well, you
Makes it all
said
feel a little
it.
bit more worthwhile. Oh, I said it.
You said it.
Oh, well, I don't count.
You actually thought it was a review then, did you?
That's my ego now. That doesn't count. Oh, bloody
Brilliant.
hell.
You
Right.
forgot that, did you?
I
You
did.
obviously don't watch these things back, do you?
No.
You
No.
should, because it's good to
I
remind
should.
yourself of what you said last week, and then we don't repeat ourselves.
Yeah, but I have to look at myself in the mirror. I don't want to
I
watch myself on the
know, I
screen as well.
know, I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. It's hard work, but anyway. So we will be
Yeah.
back. Yeah, we will be back next week.
Well,
Until then, have fun. I've been Andy.
I've been Tim, and that's been a sodding drill.
That's been a drill, and this has been DS9 Reprimat Chatcast. Bye bye, Duggan. I'm just letting it run for a minute so I can
Yeah,
trim
sure.
easier,
Oh man, that is so annoying.
isn't it?